you'll see the little recording button. There it is. We are now recording. So feel free to call the meeting to order, and then we can take a motion to go into executive session.
I am going to call this meeting to order on Monday, July 13th, 2020 at 6:36 p.m. I will take a motion. Well, I'm going to, I guess, change the agenda so that we have executive session first, and then we'll return to the rest of our regular agenda. How much time do we think we need for that? An hour?
I think probably, I would say, 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah, let's do an hour just to be safe.
So I'll take a motion to exit the public part of the meeting for 1 hour, at which time we will resume the public portion.
So if everybody that's on the public portion after this vote wants to sign off, and then you should come back on at about 7:40.
So moved.
Okay. I'll second.
All those in favor of exiting the public portion of the meeting for now to resume in an hour, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. Bill,
Okay,
I didn't get any indication from you.
Bill, are you with us?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Okay, that's you.
Is Beth not with us this evening?
I did not see Beth online. No.
No, his.
Okay.
Yours.
Okay. Okay.
So right now you have everybody on the board except Beth and Pietro and me.
Let me quickly send. I think you can stop recording.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just going to quickly send Beth a text message to see whether she.
For
perhaps
people
forgot.
to, because we said 7:40.
7:40 and it's 7:37 right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Let's see.
Or we can talk about things that the other people won't care about. Speaking of something the other people won't care about, the Vermont School Board Association's conference.
Yes.
What's the story? I saw headlines or subject lines that people were having trouble getting in or something like that. Is there a specific way to register?
Yeah, I resent the link, and that was live. I think Elizabeth, you sent it to me. I don't know what happened to the original link, but
So if I go through the link and register, then I should be fine.
yeah, although it's going to ask you for money or a purchase order. Amy,
Right. Well, but this is part of what happens then.
yeah,
So the person who issues purchase orders was
You don't. That is not a required answer. You just put your name in. You put your supervisory union, Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union, what your role is, and then hit register.
But when I did that, I've done that twice, and I have never received a confirmation of any sort from them.
I think right now there are 29 supervisory unions registered. I think we are one of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to check. Just because I think I did that a couple of days ago for everybody, but I'll go back and check that just to be safe.
Not every system confirms registrations. I've had that with other events that I've done, not with the VSBA, but with other organizations where they don't tell you. You just register, and then you hope you're in there.
It's also the fact that everyone is working from home, and they
Right.
announced it right before a weekend.
Right.
Yeah, that was a crazy time. You're right. I'm going to check right now with VSA if we're registered, and then that way you can just put your name in, attach it to WSCSU, and you're good to go.
Perfect. I definitely want to go to the first day's session.
Absolutely.
It has all sorts of ramifications.
Welcome back, everybody. Yes, it's okay to be here. We are back in public session. Okay. David, can you mute yourself while you're typing, please?
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. So now we're back at the changing of the changes to the agenda. Let's see. Did Colleen make it on here yet? No, not yet.
I did send her the new link.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. There's one more change to the agenda, and that is that we need to add the minutes of June 25th to the consent agenda. I have one announcement, and that is actually two announcements. And it's about census participation. Both of our towns are rather far behind on census participation. David, I don't know what's been done in years past. I haven't been here for that long, or Amy, I don't know whether the schools do something to encourage families to participate in the census, but we have a lot riding on census participation. We have the schools, the education system has those block grants now. The towns have lots of grant qualifications that are attached specifically to census data. So is there anything that that can be done through the schools to encourage families to take part? Does anybody know? Amy?
Well, I don't recall what happened 10 years ago, but I know I would think that we could send out some sort of PSA encouraging people that if they haven't already to participate in the census, tell them just how easy it is and the benefits to our communities.
Yeah, because in West Windsor, I think we're at 41%, and in Windsor, I think we're at 59%. So
I know 10 years ago, they sent something to every family, and they're not doing that anymore. You have to go online, or I don't know if you have to ask for one. I don't know.
No. So I got something, my household got something in the mail, and
we didn't.
I did.
We responded to it.
Tell your dad.
Within 15 minutes of receiving it, and we're done. So this was back maybe April. It opened up April 1st.
I was going to say, I received something. It took us until yesterday to finally get around to answer it, put it going online and responding to it. But we got it a long time ago. And yeah.
And the public libraries across the state are sending out announcements on all of their Facebook pages. I mean,
yeah. So Elizabeth, to your point, is there an action here that through the SESU social media and through the email, can we just craft something to post it? Because I think you're right. Considering there's dollars that come our way due to this. We should be sending something out by now. Yeah.
David, if I send you a rough, some bullet points, would you mind sending it out to the SU families, just as a PSA?
No, that would be fine. We can do that.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay, that was that. I don't see any real public participation people here. Is there any? I was going to say that we have a very broad status update for where we are with Tiffany Riley, and that is that we can say that our board met with Tiffany last Monday, and that no decisions were made as a result of that meeting. So that's the end of that update. Is there any member of the public who would like to have a 2-minute string of words? Okay. Next, we are at discussion on possible community process. This had to do with, well, let me start by saying that we've had a number of people with high quality backgrounds volunteer to be part of a task force of some sort. We're not really there quite yet at all. Where we are, to my mind, is looking carefully at the process of addressing systemic racism in our district. We're not ready to pursue anything at this time, but I thought it would be a good idea to talk about what that process might consist of. I sent an email to each of you earlier this week about this, but Lisa Ryan, who is our person in Rutland, or not our person, a person in Rutland who does restorative justice as a practice. She couldn't be with us this evening because of a scheduling conflict, but here's what she said. She's interested in contracting with the board to determine processes to address systemic racism holistically. In addition, if there's a desire to have an additional forum or process around the issue with the principal, she's also willing to do that. So we have that. Anyway, I was wondering if my fellow board members had any thoughts about that, please. Amy?
Yes. So I believe first we need to, for want of a better word, deal with the current situation. Having our conversation with Tiffany Riley. I think that's the first thing we need to do. Next, I think something restorative justice within our community, that would be a very interesting opportunity, just a broadening of the conversation. Something maybe along the lines of what Hartford did. I think that would be helpful, but I don't think we need anyone else joining in with our conversation with Tiffany Riley.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just to clarify, I definitely didn't mean to imply that at all. And I didn't mean to imply that anything would happen before we have, before we're out of that quagmire. I just meant for this discussion, I just meant to talk about, broadly speaking, if we want to do something, what that process might look like. As I said in my email, if we wanted to come up with a statement of commitment on behalf of the board, I'm not really comfortable with one of us writing the statement and everybody sending their edits. I think there should be an actual process there, and that's all I meant, was that was just talking about what the actual process could be, and not that we should start the process. But then when we're ready, we'll have the puzzle pieces that we can drop into place. That's all. Yes, Chris.
Well, and I would agree with both of you, because I think that this conversation about all of the conversations that are going on around our country is a conversation that we should be having, and that we were actually planning to have before specific circumstances changed our timeline, I guess is the best way to say it. So I'm all for getting to that conversation once we've settled and figured out how we're going forward, because we need to have that conversation, I think, in the process of bringing the community together and bringing the school into the next step of whatever is going to happen. So I would say we need to go on from what we need. We need to handle the things, the immediate issue, and figure out how to settle that. And then I'm all for the broader conversation. But yeah, that's about it.
Maybe if there was a committee from the board of 3 people.
You know, when I was talking with Lisa Ryan about it, she suggested that that's actually something that ought to happen closer to the end, because if it happens in the beginning, then sometimes people get frustrated because it's not moving as quickly as they'd like it to. So there should be maybe some legwork that gets done before we bring other people in.
So no, I meant a committee of 3 board members.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I apologize.
And Amy, I'm guessing possibly the board members figuring out who we might want to bring in as a facilitator or something like that.
Right, yeah. And
so to look at those options and
working on that plan so that we're not all having to warn a meeting every other day.
Right.
Right.
As well as, you know, I think it would just really streamline.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. I would really love to be part of that conversation. Is there anybody else who would like to be part of that conversation?
David had his hand up for something. I'm not sure what, but
yeah, no, I just want to make sure too. I think it's a good idea to start pulling the conversation together. I'm just wondering too. I thought at one point we talked, because this has potential, much like in Hartford, policy implications. It also, you know, digs deep into sort of that whole idea of, you know, community statements and restoration. I mean, I thought we had sort of kicked some of this up to the SU level. Are we thinking we need to do something separate in Mount Scottney School District than we would do as a supervisory union? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think we need both. I think we need something in our district, the whole district, not just Windsor, but also West Windsor. And we also need to work on policy at the supervisory union level. I think that, you know, having this, our district in both towns will create a context, sort of apply as an afterthought, a context for what's happening with the principal.
Okay.
Is anybody else interested in being part of the 3-person group?
I could be interested in it.
Are you interested in it, or you could be interested in it?
Well, I could be interested in it. I guess I could be interested in it. I get the only thing I would say, no offense to you, Elizabeth, but you're taking on an awful lot, and I don't know whether you might want to consider burnout as a possibility, given the other thing that we have going on, and other things that you might have going on. And I don't know if anybody else is interested in participating in something prior to this or not. But
well, I don't. Yeah. Is there anybody else who's interested in it?
I would be, but I have an election to run. I am up to my ears in sending out absentee ballots. So it would have to be after the election.
Well, that's coming right up, as we know.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Gray hair, woo!
Yes. You also need to be worried about a little bit of burnout too. Just a thought. Just a thought.
Yeah, and I don't think there's necessarily a rush to this. Maybe you think there is. But
I really just wanted to bring up so that it got said out loud tonight. We don't have to. I certainly don't think we have to act on it right now.
Yeah. No, neither do I.
Yeah. Yeah. And Elizabeth, this is Beth. I'm happy to be a part of it. It's just, right, if there are daytime meetings, you know my restriction. So that's the only issue.
Okay. Well, why don't we just mull it for the next month? Mull it over.
Okay. That seems fair. We have enough other things to settle
Yeah, we
over the
certainly
next month.
Yep.
So,
certainly have enough to work on. Okay. Thank you for hearing me out. Did Colleen make it to our meeting at the moment?
I know that Colleen is not in town, so to speak. So I think that she was having trouble with her internet, and I bet she didn't make it.
Oh, it's been a terrible internet day today.
I know.
It's a terrible day today. And we live on the same road, so. Well, the next item is the reopening task force / opening of school. And I was wondering first, because of where we are, like because of the actual whole context, has the administration given any thought to how to approach the budget at all? David.
So yeah. So you're talking about the budget in the current fiscal year, the year we're in right now, right?
The year we're in right now, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, we've obviously given some thought to that. I mean, we've got several pieces that we have to settle up, right? Essentially, and that is, how did we close out FY20, right? So not that that's a balance we can carry forward into FY21, but it certainly will inform the budget process for FY22. We're in FY21 now, and what we're trying to sort out, and we're supposed to be able to sort this out in the next week or two, is what kinds of monies are coming in, both in terms of the COVID relief fund, the CRF money, and in this other part of money, which is called ESSER money, which is tied again to COVID relief. And then that will, because we are making some decisions and purchases around, the reopening task force is recommending, certainly we have to secure all the PPE. We have to have the thermometers ready to go for the health checks at the beginning of every day for every child. We're talking a little bit about, maybe additional transportation costs. I don't think there's going to be a lot of staffing increases, but yeah, we're thinking about it. What we just don't know is how much of what we're spending right now can be utilized for COVID expenses versus how much of it is going to be actual capital expenses pressed against the budget for this fiscal year. So, I mean, that's sort of a broad brushstroke, but I think at August meeting, I'm hoping by then the year is closed out now. I think certainly Ed can get us some detail on.
Yeah, and I think we're supposed to find out, one of the things at the VSBA meeting next week is supposed to be another presentation of the statement of where we are. And
so I think we'll be in better shape at our August meeting to answer some of those questions. But we're always paying attention to it as we make those opening plans.
Can you please just before we delve into much detail about the school reopening task force and what that looks like, can you please explain how the management of the Windsor schools has been, or the duties of management of the Windsor schools have been split up, and who they have been allocated to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with the current principal on paid leave, obviously we had to, lead the staff through both the end of the year professional development activities and into the summer around, participating in the reopening task force. And so because we had two other administrators, Colleen Deschamps, who had been the assistant principal for, I think this is her third year, and then Kate Ryan, who just took over for Matt Miga. Matt Miga was the dean of students, but he didn't have his license, didn't really want to get an administrator's license at that point. So then we wanted to go to a licensed person to sort of provide those other so Kate Ryan is the other assistant principal. So it would have been a principal with two assistant principals. So both of those, both Colleen and Kate, and also I've been lending quite a bit of assistance, and so has Angie. We're sort of keeping the ship afloat, so to speak. That's what's happening right now.
Is it divided by school? Did you assign one person to each school?
You mean by the elementary school and the upper level? You mean at Windsor?
Yes.
Yeah. No, not yet. They tend to, because the activities have been whole school activities, both at the end of the year and over the summer. We haven't had to think too much about that. When you get down to the day-to-day management of the buildings, I think that's going to be much more critical to make that decision. I think, certainly Kate tends to gravitate toward the elementary, and Colleen tends to gravitate toward the upper level. And so it seems to be a natural division of labor, but right now they're both contributing to all K-12 activities.
Do either one of them have like special areas of expertise?
Yeah, well, Kate is an elementary school teacher, right? She's got the 100, so she's licensed as an elementary teacher and as a principal. She's got the administrative license, and Colleen has both her health license. I think her health license is still active. That's a K-12 license, and then she also had a science endorsement. She taught science at Windsor for a lot of years. I think that endorsement goes 7 through 12, and I know she's taught at middle level, and I think she's taught at high schools in other states as well. But that's why she tends to gravitate up, and Kate tends to gravitate down to the elementary.
I think she's 5.9 science certified.
All right, thank you. I don't have her license in front of me, but we could find that out.
Okay.
But she clearly is upper level. Kate's clearly lower level.
Okay. You sent a report out to the.
Yeah, that's why we don't. I can send it to anybody. I think I sent it to the administrative team, to all the board members, and I don't know. Amanda's on the. I don't know whether Jen, you've got it. I can open it up on screen. I don't think I need to go through it by detail. I mean, that's why I sent it out ahead of time, just assuming that we could, if there were any questions or concerns or thoughts. Do you want me to share my screen and put it up there, or do you want to does everybody have it in front of them at this point?
I'm sorry, what was the email, David? I don't think I have anything.
I sent out an email today that has the school report or the school board report for this week. I mean, I'm just trying to keep the board updated on the reopening plans. Mm-hmm. And I can share it with you right now, Beth, if you want.
Oh, okay. It's the reopening plan. That's what it is. I didn't know there's something else. Got it.
No, does anybody else want it or need it?
I have it.
Angie, do you need it? No, she's got it. All right, good. And how about Amanda? Is Amanda still on the line?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm not sure. Is it the reopening plan that Angie has sent Jennifer, or it's something specifically that you created, Dr. Baker?
Yeah, it's something I created, so I'll send it to you now, okay?
I just shared it with her.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. And Liz, so you might get it twice, but yeah, there it is. So essentially, it just basically lays out the composition of the task force. And I think we've got a very vibrant task force working on this, including all of the administrators. We were very fortunate, and also the union presidents, because so much of this, if you've been reading the news at the University of Vermont, does require paying some attention to the collective bargaining agreement as you start to massage schedules and talk about calendars and start to talk about, locating kids in groups and asking certain teachers to do, maybe some jobs that they haven't done in the past. So you need to have the union involved. Director of Building and Grounds, Food Service Coordinator, Angela Ledoux and I have been facilitating this process. And then we were fortunate enough to have two people from outside the district, both from Mount Scottney Hospital, Otella Perry and Dr. Mary Bender. And Mary Bender is a well-respected pediatrician. She's been very helpful. She sends me things sometimes in between meetings that, including the report. I'm sure most of you have read some of these reports, or maybe you haven't, but, the American Pediatrics Association is keeping tabs on a lot of this. So I think it's a committee that's, well represented, and we basically are fully invested in the reasons why people want to bring kids back to school. I mean, we could spend a lot of time debating whether or not it's the right thing to do right now, given where we are. But the Agency of Education, by which I received my license, and all of the professionals in the district received their license, has said that we'll reopen public schools in the fall. So we're working to that end. We do believe in the reasons, and I listed some of those in this report: social connections, the in-person learning, safety and well-being of all students, food security, because again, now that we're in the summer feeding, we're not feeding as many kids as we did during the school year, and I think it's easier when they're in the building than when they're out of the building. And then just the physical and mental health monitoring of our students. A lot of our students are well serviced by our school nurses and some of our outside providers. Some of them receive their mental health counseling through the school. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to, and we don't know whether they have been able to continue to actively seek that kind of support. And then I've got all those bullets there that basically work us through the decisions that we've made so far. And if anybody, I don't need to read through them. If you want to just quickly read through them and see, I mean, it's the CDC guidelines, and the AOE guidelines are sort of long on recommendations and requirements and short on detail. So we're going to have to create the detail. The superintendents have asked that a state task force be put together to maybe come up with a state plan. So all schools might be doing something similar. And we've been refused twice now to do that, and basically told, you're on your own. Figure it out, interpret the guidelines, and you do what you need to do to make your schools safe when you reopen. So that's what we're doing. And we're basically trying to err on the side, because our risk management consultant, Ben Prevo, who works for Visbit, our insurance company, is making sure that we err on the side of caution rather than on the side of a loose interpretation of these guidelines. So you can see what we've got there, and you can see what we're going to be asking of students. I think that I did another building walkthrough. I've walked through Windsor with Colleen. I've walked through Heartland today with Christine. I walked through Albert Bridge with Jennifer today. I think we've got spaces in our buildings. Luckily, most of our buildings were built for more students than we're serving right now. So I think we've got room to put kids in confined spaces and sort of not have them interconnect, because that's really the critical piece to this, both in terms of the transmission of the virus and in terms of contact tracing. If a teacher is found to be test positive for COVID, or a student test positive for COVID, they want the cohorts reasonably small so that you can then make the contact tracing a little more efficient. So we've figured out, I think, in our spaces, ways to organize kids and cluster kids so that they will be in smaller groups with a group of teachers around them, working on, some direct math, some direct English language arts instruction, but also some integrated work. There's going to be a strong push to get kids outside. We're designating areas outside where, let's say, cohort A and cohort B and cohort C can be assigned, so that they can have outdoor activities. We're going to be encouraging, walks and all of the stuff that will provide some level of physical activity and exploration in the curriculum, in the classroom. And this was, and when I've done the walkthroughs, this is going to be the most difficult, trying to keep kids spaced with their own work area and being able to be kept sort of within this sort of invisible bubble, but still have some contact and interconnectivity with their peers and with their teachers. And I think that, we're still trying to learn from Mary Bender, the pediatrician, and Otella Perry, what are some of the ways in which we can have students interact and be able to come together for certain activities and not have to worry that they have to be some level of robots at these 6-foot spaces with, maybe pool tubes on their heads so they don't ever come within 6 feet of another human being. We just don't want to treat this as though it's an environment where, their mental health would be worse for being there than not being there. So we're going to try to make it as user-friendly as possible. This gets back to the budget issue. You'll see on there the purchasing of certain equipment, whether they be dividers or whether they be the PPE equipment or the thermometers, fumigating products and sanitize products. We're having to do HVAC upgrades so that we can, you have to have, I won't get into all the gory details, but you have to have 2 hours of fresh air blow into the building before anybody arrives. And you have to have 4 hours of fresh air blow into the buildings after everybody leaves. The HVAC system that we have now takes air in, pushes air out, takes air in, pushes air out. But now it has to only blow air in for a good period of time so that you're getting the fresh air from outside to the inside. So Jim's, part of this state pilot group, and he's getting a lot of assistance, hopefully financial assistance, to make all this happen. We're one of 5 schools, and Jim's doing a great job with that. And I think we'll be in better shape than most when we do open those doors. Food service will be non-congregational. Sanitization will happen by the custodial staff at least 3 times a day, and in certain areas up to 6 times a day, restrooms, bathrooms. So again, if anybody's any questions about this plan, I think we're going to be ready. I'm hoping by the beginning of next week to release some of the details. I know that parents really want to know what it's going to look like and what kinds of restrictions will be in place, and also what are some of the exciting things that will happen for kids. I think they also want to know, because they're hearing all kinds of schedules being proposed, everything from one group goes on Monday, the next group goes on Tuesday, the other group comes back on Wednesday. I've heard 4 days on, 1 day off. We've got some people who are going totally remote at the high school. I mean, these plans are starting to emerge, and I know our parents are probably hearing these plans. What we will do for our kids, and I think everybody on the task force will tell you this, is we believe that consistency for kids. So whatever happens will happen 5 days a week, and it will happen within the confines of the building, and it will happen safely, and it will be consistent for kids so they can have a predictable day, and that'll be pre-K right through grade 12. So I don't want to tip the hand too much on the actual plan, but it won't be one of these A-B situations, or we're there Mondays, but we're not there Tuesdays, and we're back Wednesday mornings, and we take Friday afternoons off. It won't be that. It'll be a consistent school day. It does not, just because kids have to be constricted in certain spaces and teachers have to have planning periods and bathroom breaks and all that other stuff, it probably will not be a complete full day. It will not be like we've done in the past where it's 7:45 till 2:30. It'll probably be a shortened day, but we're trying to work out those details right now with our task force and our union representatives. I am meeting with the union presidents tomorrow to talk about equity and schedules and anything that needs to be changed in the CBA. But I think it'll be a hybrid. There'll still be some remote work and asynchronous work, but every student will be in the building every day for a fairly lengthy period of time. So any questions, then feel free to ask them, but that's basically where we are right now.
I just basically have one request, and that is that when you come out with the plan, simultaneously with releasing the plan, please provide a way for people to ask questions and get them answered, whether it's an email address or a link to the FAQs page or something like that. I think it would be really helpful to.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And matter of fact, one of the things we're waiting for, Elizabeth, is Angie is the keeper of the frequently asked questions, and so we want to get that FAQ completed so we can give a link to that FAQ document, but also still, when I send out an email, generally it's coming out from my box, and people tend, even that little email I sent out today, I got 2 or 3 responses. I'm sure I'll get many more responses when that comes out in terms of the actual plan. One of the questions that's coming up over and over again, and I think the boards have to be aware of this, is what if I don't want to send my child back to school? So in other words, will you have enough teachers to also take care of the remote group? Or will you be hiring more teachers to take care of the remote group? And I think we're just going to have to be really careful with that, because to get these kids spaced and safe in these areas, it's not like we can have a cadre of teachers doing remote work and a cadre of teachers doing, but I do think there are ways using technology that we can have those parents who want to keep their kids home have some access to what's going on in those classrooms during the school day. We're talking a lot with Larry and the IT team to make that happen, but it will not be perfect, because I think teachers have to either be good at what they do in person, and then if they're not in person, good at what they do remote. But to try to do both is a tension within the system, I think. So just be aware that we'll try to make accommodations. And I know Kate's got some kids that will need direct accommodations that are special ed students, but in general, your access to the classroom will be only through a Google Hangout classroom as we set up and that classroom. So that's about the best we're going to be able to do in terms of providing both venues.
Amy, did you have a question?
Yeah, just to take what you said, Elizabeth, a little bit further, that the easier it is for community to ask questions and to receive answers in some form or another, the more likely we can move forward in a positive direction, as opposed to having social media take over and become really negative.
Right. No, I think that's a great point, Amy. I think we have to also be aware, and I'm sure everybody on this call is aware of this. There is no plan that's going to satisfy everybody, right? And I've got people who email me and say, just send them back. They don't need masks. They don't need distancing. You don't need to sanitize. This is a communist plot. So I've had 2 or 3 emails like that, right? So that's going to be out there in the community. Then I've had other people who say, how strict are you going to be on the distancing? Is everybody going to have to wear a mask? There are people that want to err on the side of caution. So what we're trying to do, as always is the case in public education, is try to find that middle ground where you're watching out for the health and safety of the community, but at the same time you're setting up a reasonable educational environment that is vibrant and engaging, and motivating. And that's what I want to emphasize. I want to emphasize the work our teachers have been doing at the end of last year and will continue to do, that I think is going to provide for curriculum like we've maybe never seen it. And we're going to have to deal with the distancing and the masking, but I think we can make it exciting.
Well, thank you, David, for telling us about that.
We'll keep you posted.
Excellent work. Let's see. So next, I was hoping that Angie, you might be able to provide us with an update on Portrait of a Graduate.
Oh, Portrait of a Graduate. Yes. So we had our strategic planning meeting at the end of June, and we have started the writing process. So the steps, now that we have our portrait, the strategic plan is going to help us put that portrait into practice. And so what, I just looked at the first draft of our goals today, and I've sent that out. We have a team of people that weren't necessarily involved in the portrait process. So it's really great to, we have some paraprofessionals, some teachers, union representation, community members, and there's about 15 of us, some parents, and we're looking at the draft. So our consultant presents us with a draft based on the information that he gathers at our meetings, and then we look through that and we vet it. The first step is to look at the goals, and so I think it's going to be a very interesting process watching that, you know, the portrait, which is really just a big idea right now, watching how we bring that down to the specific actions that we're going to take. So we have, we just had an introductory meeting last Wednesday for the writing team. And our first meeting to respond to the goals statements as they were written is Thursday. And then we have several more meetings planned before the August 12th next portrait big team meeting, strategic planning team meeting. So yeah, process is moving forward.
Very exciting.
It is very exciting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll add, Elizabeth, is that the portrait work that we did last fall and the competencies that we came up with, and I think Angie would attest to this. I mean, it really did provide even a preliminary or trial foundation for some of the integrated and interdisciplinary work that teachers have been doing in preparation for the return to school in these small pods and these small cohorts. So even and they're pretty much grade level cohorts, even right up to high school. We've combined a few of them here and there, 7, 8, 9, 10 at Windsor. But I think the work is already paying off in terms of people realizing that it's much better to think about these broader concepts in terms of what a graduate would look like, and then go deep in the learning, but not as broad, but a little deeper. And I think it's worked out really, really well. So I hope it continues that way.
One of the things that our consultant said to us was, just live with those competencies. Like this year, and maybe toward the middle or the end of the year, we'll start developing more. So what we did, like great rubrics, but I'm not even sure we're going to do that. So we have our transferable skills, our learning expectations, right? We have rubrics, and they're taught very much like you would teach a math lesson. And then students are expected to practice those things, self-direction, communication, that sort of thing. So so we told this to the staff in the trainings in June, and we said, we're not going to treat it like content. These are our values. We want to embrace these as values, because how do you really score a kid on empathy? But we can teach kids about empathy. We can teach kids to practice empathy. We can have empathy for our students and for the situation that we're in. And some of the schools have taken that theme and like their whole program K-8 is emphasizing empathy, for example. So our teachers are embracing it, which I think is what we have to do, is live with it and really determine how we live, being showing empathy, demonstrating empathy, perseverance. I've got them written here on my little pink sticky note so that I don't forget them. Integrity, communication, and critical thinking. So good.
Excellent. Excellent. Does anybody have any questions about Portrait of a Graduate? All right. The exploratory team, we met on June 9th, believe it or not, the day after our last meeting. And there were about somewhere around 10 people, plus or minus 2 or 3. We did not have a facilitator at that time. We talked about the general goals of the group. There were some I thought, really valuable discussions over frustrations that people were having in today's today's structure and educational life. We received a lot of really valuable input, but some people, because it was during the last week of school, there was a lot of burnout, and people acknowledged that as well. Ultimately, we broke through the kind of logjam and wound up talking about grade banding and educational opportunities. We acknowledge that we've never been here before, and yeah. So I don't know where we are with Jan.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Jan, believe it or not, even though she's taken a little bit of a backseat to reopening and a few other things that are happening, I mean, Jan still expresses interest.
Okay.
I have an email. It's at the bottom of my email chain, but I was just looking at notes from Jan Willie, sort of a draft of some work that she could, some design team work that she could do. Again, I have not gotten back to her just because I'm not clear on when we're going to feel able to just refocus on this, but I think she's willing to continue to facilitate. Angie, have you had any conversations with her? No? Okay. So I probably am the one that has had the last one, and she sent this email out on June 15th. So that's a while ago, but I will. And I did get back to her and say, hang on tight. I got it. I'll get back to you. But I think she's ready virtually, probably for right now, because she wants to be careful, but she's ready to facilitate, I think, at this point. And maybe you and I, Elizabeth, should meet with her first and just have an initial conversation, and then figure out what would be a good time to pull the team together. I'm just so nervous with August and September just being, grab your mask and distance up and trying to get some good head work done. I think it's like at the end of last year. You're absolutely right. Everybody was burnt. So I don't know. But then again, when is a good time, right? So I think I'll follow whatever the board wants to do and how you want to proceed.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's only July 13th, so you could easily have a quick meeting with Jen whenever you want to, and then maybe the way will show from there.
That's a good idea. And I know Jen Aldrich has been very, been involved in these meetings, and has been keeping in touch with Jan Willie. So maybe again, Jen, if you and I just, we meet, I've got that design team work plan that she sent us. We'll look at it. And then if we think it's, ready to go out to everybody, we can send it out.
Why not, before things get super hairy?
Yeah, that might make some sense. Yeah. All right. So stay tuned.
Okay. The end of the year reports. Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer did one, I know, and Colleen was prepared to speak to everybody, but I can.
I just wanted, so Jennifer, your report did go back into, I think it sort of wrapped up the year, but I have some questions about just taking a backwards look at the point between March 16th and the end of the year. And I have a bunch of really simple questions. They're do you mind answering, or just thinking?
I'll do my best.
If you could, what would you go back and change?
Oh my gosh. As far as the end of the year?
As far as the time, the distance learning.
I think the first thing we probably maybe should have done better is actually take a few more days to get our heads in the game so we took one day off and then jumped in the next day. And I think we could have taken a little bit more of a breath there and gone in with some more just perspective and support for our teachers, our families. A big area of concern is we were sort of in so many places with technology, with approaches, with time expectations. We just weren't clear. And I think if we had slowed down a little at the beginning, I think it would have created a better sense of balance moving forward. I think another thing that I probably think we could have done better is not really, I think in general, it's something that we're starting to do better, which is access our teacher leaders. I think if we had started that process of really relying on them in a more apparent way, Angie does some work with them sort of behind the scenes, but having all staff know who their teacher representatives are in certain categories, I think could have given us some better guidelines and information up front. So I think those are the two really big things I would change, is really slow down, make sure we support families in the process, and make sure we support our teachers and get more on the same page. And then just, the more we can support our teachers in being a part of the process, I think the better we're going to be in creating a more unified system. And hopefully with better thinking.
What do you see as, or what do you see as our systems, our collective systems, most insurmountable problem during that time?
Insurmountable at this point, looking at it, or at that point?
Obstacle rather than problem.
Okay.
Where you're sitting right now, what was the biggest insurmountable obstacle that never was solved?
Getting certain kids to the table, supporting families to help those kids access any kind of learning.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard for all the teachers when they're like, I don't even know what to do because, they can't get the kid to engage. And the kid's not engaging for really good reasons. And our ability to support that from a distance, I don't know what the answer is yet. I know we put a lot of effort across the supervisory union and really trying to reach out to those families. And at least knowing that they're okay, I think what was a lot of the initial worries. We're putting a lot of stress on our kids, on our families. And when we're stressed, we're not at our best. And yeah, there's just a lot of worry for our kids, for our families.
And Elizabeth, can I just ask a follow-up question? So I mean, it's a very valid point, Jen. So is there something like within Vermont or the Upper Valley, like a network? Because this is not going away, as we know, right? Is there not like a forum now or a group of how did other schools handle this? What was the best practice? I just don't know if those types of things have cropped up anywhere.
I would argue we may have been one of the leaders in having best practices.
Yeah.
Because we had so many of our support staff, we have a pretty good social emotional lens in our system, calling parents, some people even driving by and just honking horn just to wave. We talked with DCF and HCRS, and they're doing the same thing. They're going, we don't have a good answer right now.
Okay.
I'd like to also say, I think, Jennifer, didn't you and Christine attend the Vermont Principals Association? They've been having weekly informal gatherings to talk about the process. David, Christine, and I are involved in a Out of the Box series this summer that is Big Picture Learning and Vermont Principals Association. And it's basically an opportunity to really talk about how the systems are addressing needs right now.
Yeah, it's not
So
easy.
benefits of a small state.
Were there any positive elements that surprised you? And also, what did you see as a hidden benefit that can be brought to future educational practices?
So I think the first one, I'll get to second if that's okay, because I think the biggest benefit that a lot of our teachers were able to experience was how some kids, when given freedom and a different approach, took off. They loved it. They just were accessing it in a pretty exciting way. Kids were able to really do a nice job. Some of them just pulling out some of these soft skills, if you will, some of the executive functioning skills, organizational skills, time management skills, things they never would have practiced during the school day because we do so much for them. So just that lens of when we pull back, can we watch the kids who are ready to move forward and let them do that and practice that independently. And we just had some kids who found they loved a subject that they didn't know they loved because they didn't have all the stuff that surrounds the typical classroom involved in that process. So I'll give you one specific example at a student who was talking about how much she loved math. And she was always like, yeah, math was always okay. But she found she really loved it because what she was able to do was go in, do the lesson, review the lesson, try it again, review the lesson, try it again until she was like, I got this. I get it. I'm actually pretty good at math. It just takes me a few times to do it. And that kind of stuff, I think, was something that was hopefully something we don't forget as we move forward, and the use of different technology to help them access that we don't always have to be right there with all children all the time. We can be with children in our presence while specifically focusing on kids who need help getting to the next step, while others can access technology and hopefully be able to provide some flexibility for them guiding their own learning. So I think for us, I think that's something that I hope we don't lose in the next process. A surprise that came out was how much parents needed support. Often enough, setting up a meeting with a student, the parent was right there. And asking questions, really good, hard questions, and then reaching out afterwards and saying, can we touch base again later to follow up because I've got some more questions. So that was kind of a surprise to me. And the fact that I got a kid who really likes snakes that I would never have expected liked snakes.
What really disappointed you?
Wow. Lack of engagement from some staff. I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but it really was, I think, probably the biggest thing throughout. We didn't have clear, balanced expectations. And I think some people, for different reasons, did not engage to the same extent that others. I mean, we had most of our teachers were just amazing and rock stars in this process, trying to figure out new stuff, going above and beyond. I mean, just meeting with kids and parents in all kinds of hours. But there are a couple that really did not, I don't think, come to the table the same way everybody else did. And I think that let the whole system down.
Yeah, Elizabeth, right, I know. I might be the only parent on here. Well, your parents, you have kids in, right, Albert Bridge. You have kids, you guys have kids in Albert Bridge. I have kids in high school. And I would probably echo Jen's statement there. There were some rocking teachers that killed it. And then there were some that were not so engaged.
Did you feel supported?
Yeah, I feel like my staff has been there to support me throughout the whole process. So it's like a reciprocal experience, I think. Colleagues around the state, there were plenty of opportunities to share and dialogue and think through this. Within our own supervisory union, our administrative team has been just really, I mean, I hate to say it, but fun in a way to work with through this mess. Just our ability to put ideas out there, bounce them out of each other, challenge each other. Just, I really have enjoyed that, actually. I met with my staff more often. Was able to meet with each individual teacher on a weekly basis as a part of our MTSS. I mean, yeah, just the whole process. I felt very supported. This year in particularly, David Baker he's just been there. consistently. Whenever I had a question, whenever I didn't think I'd come up with the goods, yeah, no question. I felt totally supported. I didn't feel like any of us had what we totally needed to make it successful as we could have made it. But I do feel like we were in it together.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my last question about this, which is, what other supports do you need that went unaddressed that you know that in the possible eventuality of another shutdown still need to be resolved?
I think we need, there's actually quite a bit here. So I think we really need to take a good look at how we support kids and I don't like the word accountability, but I think some version of really good feedback that helps kids grow and keeps those who need that accountability to help them move forward, as well as with staff. I think those two things really need to come into place. I think the thing that I'm really disappointed in myself in this process is the specials. As a person who comes from a background in teaching, science integration is one area, but music is my other area, and we failed to keep the focus on what we know is very valuable and essential. So I don't think we have a good answer for this yet. I think we're getting closer. I think we're working on some interdisciplinary learning. But I do worry that if we go into more remote learning and we're not asking kids to participate during, the full school day as we've set it up, we just need to rethink the schedule and where the priorities are for that. And how do we make it so it's accessible for our kids to do and engage in the process of creating art, in the process of developing skills in those areas. I think we did pretty good with PE. And for us, place-based education, I think we had some good stuff out there, but I really feel like I let the specials down in this process, and I don't have a good idea yet. I'm getting better ideas. I'm working with the Vermont Music Educators Association on what the guidelines could look like for that group. But I think those are, to me, sort of the biggest things, and then really figuring out how to help and support our families to access the education. I just can't stress that enough. We don't have a good answer for that. Nobody does that I've heard yet. And we know that, parents want to do well. They want their children to succeed. And so much is getting in their way that we need better resources to help support them.
Well, thank you. Does anybody object to 5 more minutes of a discussion of that week of PD that was at the very end of the year? Because I just have a couple of questions about that.
No, I think that's it's consistent with what we've been talking about. So
yeah. Did you? I don't know who is the best person to answer this question. Whether it's you, Jennifer, or you, Angie, or
probably Angie.
Angie.
I should have known what the question is first, but I'm passing it off to Angie.
She didn't even hear the question yet.
Did you accomplish all you set out to do during that week of professional?
Oh, during the from June 10th through the 18th, and then some. I have to say, I think we get a lot of feedback from the staff, and I think a lot of it was very positive. There was some developmental feedback as well, which, it's hard to do. I mean, I don't think you're always going to meet everybody's needs, no matter what you try to do, right? So I always read those very seriously, take that feedback very seriously. But I think we had, staff got excited about the interdisciplinary units, and when they reported that back, like I had one teacher say, I'm excited about teaching again. This was a special educator who's been a special educator for a lot of years. She goes, I'm excited about. She was on our instructional planning team, And to me, that was like worth everything, every minute. That I do think there are a lot of questions. I think staff are very concerned about coming back and what in-person instruction will look like. And you know, we're going to do the best that we can in trying to develop plans that address, you know, we plan for everything that we can think of, right? And just hope that, you know, we're going to do our best and we're going to figure it out together. So I think that end of the year provided us with a really, I mean, at that very last meeting on the afternoon of the 18th, there was 173 people listening to David. You know, they were this big on the screen. And I mean, I have a 22-inch monitor here because they were still really teeny. But that I think people, I hope that the general sentiment was that people felt supported and encouraged, and they were doing what teachers do best, which is get creative.
Were there any blind spots that you uncovered through that process?
Well, I think it gave us, you know, David had been talking about this model that we're moving into with the school reopening task force of basically self-contained groups of students with teams of teachers. And I think that was, you know, for our content specialists, middle school teachers and above, that's a big departure from the way that's not schooling the way they know how to do it. But the thing is they do know how to do that because they've been doing, at Windsor High School, they've been doing senior capstone, the 11th grade science project, and the other piece of it, which I always forget. And the academy is at the freshman and sophomore level. And so they know, we're just saying, do more of what you already know how to do. And I know that they value that. So there were a lot of great discussions around, you know, what that meant. Today I was talking about how it's interesting that some people think that the interdisciplinary is coming as new. It feels new to them. And that makes me think we haven't done our job well as administrators and really helping them see the connection, because interdisciplinary, personalized learning, proficiency-based learning has been around since the education quality standards came out in 2014. And I know that the staff has been talking about that since 2014. So, Amy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that as administrators, you haven't, you know, you feel like, wow, where did this drop from people not knowing about it? And as having having that as a value, interdisciplinary learning, and as a board or as an individual, you know, I value that. And I forget that I also need to talk about it and to promote it, instead of just thinking that I'm the last one on board and everyone is already doing it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. I think that we need, part of that feeling like it's new comes from a place of fear, like, oh my goodness, I have this much content to cover, and anybody who's taught for a year knows how much time a year is and how quickly that goes by. So I think those concerns come from a place of caring deeply about their content and about their students, and making sure they can provide a high quality learning experience for their students. So it's going to be interesting, and I just hope that we continue to learn from each other. So we're not going to be perfect, but I'm hoping that in the end it's our kiddos who can get excited about their learning, and we hear more about the kids that are excited than the other way around. Right.
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to acknowledge, Elizabeth, and this is not to embarrass Katie Ahern, but Katie really controlled the reins. You know, Karen was exiting and Katie was coming in, and she really controlled the reins during that whole, you know, period of time. But I will tell you, our special educators worked their tail off during this last bit of schooling, through that remote session and right through the last days of in-service. I think Katie provided some excellent in-service. I'm going to propose that next month, aside from Ed giving the financials, that Katie kind of give you an update with respect to special education and where we are, both in terms of finances and staffing and, general morale questions, because they are going to be a big part of the reopening plan. Because one of the questions on, 220 kids' families' minds will be, okay, so what happens to this service and what happens to that service? And, because a lot of those IEPs, regardless of how we reopen, those IEP goals have to be met. So I just wanted to say that.
So we are now at the part of our meeting where we of the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve Jennifer's principal report and also the minutes of June 8th, June 25th, July 1st, and July 6th.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Who seconded? Nancy?
Yeah, Nancy. Even though Beth tried to.
All those in favor of approving principals reports and the 4 sets of minutes, June 8th, June 25th, July 1st, and July 6th, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Is there anybody opposed? Are there any abstentions?
I probably should abstain from, what was it, June 8th, since I was not present, but.
Okay. Okay. And now, just very quickly, there isn't anybody from the Windsor School here, unfortunately, so they can't answer this question. But for old business, I was going to ask whether there is somebody at the Windsor School. David, perhaps you can ask somebody whether there's somebody at the Windsor School who could coordinate the student participation so that we don't lose track of that before the beginning of the school year.
On the
Yeah,
board?
is that proposal in a Word document or is it in a PDF or do you know?
I'll send it to you. I'm sure I can track it down.
Why don't you send it to me and then I'll follow up with you. Yeah, I think I might be able to track it too, but.
And we're just looking for somebody to take that on.
Yeah, that's doable.
Okay, thank you. For our future agenda items, I've got school reopening, the possible community process again, financials, and an update on special education. Does anybody have anything else they would like to have addressed at the next meeting that they know of right now?
Dr. Baker, do you want me to talk about the results from the CPS survey at this, or do you want me to do that at the board level?
No, I'd love to get that done. I mean, the other thing we sometimes do in the summer is schedule a retreat, but I don't know whether we have time to do that or not. But is the next board meeting the 10th? I'm looking at the calendar now. Is that the next board meeting?
Yep.
August 10th?
I thought it was oh boy.
Is it second Monday or first Monday? It's second Monday, right? Second Monday. So it would be the 10th. Is the 10th a holiday?
Well, why?
No. I don't know. Isn't Battle of Bennington somewhere around that date, or am I in the wrong month?
Battle of Bennington?
Hey, come on, Google it.
Is it the 15th?
It might be. So do you want to go 6:30? Because if we wanted to make this more of a retreat format, we could start a little earlier. I'm not suggesting that, and then we could give out, some additional reports and update on like the collaborative problem solving and look a little bit deeper at maybe some of the preliminary strategic plan, but we could also push that off to the fall too.
I was just going to say, David, I would be glad to do that, but I can't do that on the 10th.
Okay. So we'll just, I think, so Jen, I think the simple answer is I don't think that'll take a long time to go over that. So I think that'd be good to do. So we'll get the Mount Ascutney board meeting locked in for the 10th, right? And we'll get everybody invited. So we got it all right. And then are there other agenda items?
Well, yes. Oh, besides the ones that were already mentioned.
Yeah, besides the ones you mentioned.
I think that will be a pretty full meeting, and I am sure that there will be other things coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
I agree. Okay. I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Chris?
Second. I'll second.
All those in favor of adjourning the meeting at 8:56 p.m., please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
That's
Thank
great.
Thank you.
I'll stop recording and then I'll send the recording to Diane.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.